Kaido, the king of beasts, is a beast himself? Hello my Nakamatachi, this is JoyGirl, and I know I said I would be back with part 2 of my discussion surrounding Monkey D. Dragon, but after the last chapter I couldn't help but discuss a certain other dragon who is more relevant to the current developments in One Piece. And that, of course, is Kaido. And yes, because this video is a discussion that has spurred from chapter 997, to anyone not yet caught up or an anime only fan, please take this as your spoiler warning. For everyone else, I must warn you that you're in for a wild ride. If you've been here before, you know I like to get a bit crazy. And if you're new here, you're in for quite the wild journey because crazy and wild One Piece speculations is one of my favorite pastimes. And with that being said, let's get into it. What the hell? Kaido has uprooted an entire island and is going to transport it to Wano. Seriously, what the hell? I think this is just such a mind-blowing development that needs further discussion than I ventured into in my chapter review. Especially because it revitalizes some of the older speculations that have been floating around, as well as raising new ones. The first being the age-old question, is Kaido a dragon? I mean, yes, we know he can turn into a dragon, but is this his devil fruit transformation, or is it his true form? This is something that has briefly come up in some of my other videos, but just to rehash, there are a few possible hints pointing to this. First being his epithet, the world's strongest creature. Not human, creature. Suggesting that Kaido is a beast of some sort. Further adding weight to this speculation is the fact that whenever Kaido is fighting, his human rather than his dragon form seems to be stronger and his preferred form. Knowing that for regular Zoan Devil Fruit holders, their Zoan animal forms are stronger than their base forms, it seems that this is the opposite for Kaido, implying that his human manifestation is his transformed state. Not to mention the possible links between Kaido's dragon form and that of Momonosuke's. We know that Momo consumed an artificial devil fruit, which now allows him to turn into a dragon. This devil fruit was a failed experiment of Vegapunk's, which is known to have been developed through the scientists' research on lineage factor, which we can interpret it as DNA. And who do we know of that Vegapunk could have obtained the DNA of to develop this man-made devil fruit? My money is on Kaido. We know that Kaido has been in marine captivity in the past, giving Vegapunk the opportunity to acquire his lineage factor. In this light, we could postulate the possibility that Vegapunk used Kaido's dragon DNA to develop his man-made devil fruit. And supposing that Kaido is indeed a dragon, this is how Momo's devil fruit took on its nature. Because lineage factor implies that this creature exists in order for Vegapunk to get that strand of DNA, implying that the serpentine dragon which Momo's devil fruit is modeled after exists. And on that note, Momo's dragon form is indeed similar to that of Kaido's, in that they both have an oriental appearance of a serpentine dragon, and that they share an ability, which brings us to the next point, and indeed, what has revitalized this speculation, that being Yamato's comments in the latest chapter. Yamato's reveal that dragons fly through the creation of flame clouds which they use to transport themselves has re-sparked the frenzy of whether Kaido is in fact a dragon. And of course, this ability of dragons is something that we have witnessed before, as with Momo back in Punk Hazard, albeit at a much smaller scale. But in terms of how this suggests Kaido's true nature has to do with Yamato's specific wording, as we know, One Piece is meticulously created. No word goes to waste. When Yamato specifies that dragons fly, not that Kaido has this ability due to his devil fruit, not even mentioning the word ability at all. It just seems to imply that this cloud flame is part of the nature of dragons. No special ability through devil fruits, just simply one of the qualities inherent within dragons. The plurality of dragons, furthermore, suggests that there are multiple of them, such as a whole dragon race. And in saying that, there is one interesting feature of both Kaido and Momo's transformation which sets them apart from other Zoan devil fruit users, natural and artificial alike, further suggesting that Kaido is not a devil fruit user. And this is that when Kaido and Momo are in their dragon forms, they are butt naked. However, for other Zoan users, whether in the hybrid or full Zoan forms, they retain their clothing. And this includes other Dragon Zoan fruit users such as Drake, Page 1 or Queen, who all have a model of the Ruryu no Mi, which translates to dragon fruit, dragon referring to dinosaurs, and even Chopper, who has the Hito no Mi, a variation which Kaido assumedly would have if he indeed was a dragon that transformed into a human through a Zoan Devil Fruit ability. Even Chopper is seen with clothing in any of his forms. The only exception to this is Mako and his Tori no Mi model Phoenix. When in his full Zoan form, the Phoenix is seen without any clothing, but this could be attributed to the fact that he is engulfed in flames, and to compensate, since the time skip, I've considered the blue rings around the Phoenix's eyes to be glasses, as they resemble the pair that Mako sports in his human form. But Kaido in dragon form never has any clothing, suggesting that he is not a human with a dragon devil fruit, nor a dragon with a human devil fruit. And Momo, if his devil fruit was indeed created based on Kaido's dragon lineage, differs from other devil fruit users because of the unique DNA of Kaido that sets him apart, resulting in the shared tendency of being naked in their dragon forms. Now, of course, this may simply be a design choice because a dragon in clothing would just not look as cool, but this is Oda we're talking about. So, if Kaido is neither human nor dragon, then he may be something else entirely. In which case, a possibility in my opinion is that Kaido is an Oni. And this would also make sense when considering his horns and the fact that he wields a kanabo, which is the weapon of Onis in traditional folklore. Moreover, Kaido resides on Onigashima, quite literally translating to the island of Oni, and when we were first introduced to Kaido's son Yamato, he was seen wearing a Hanya mask, Hanya being the female counterpart of Oni. And so if Kaido is an Oni, his ability to transform into different forms would also make sense, as the Japanese word Oni derives from the word on, meaning to hide or to conceal, referring to Oni's traits of hiding behind things. And in that sense, perhaps the Oni race are natural shapeshifters. This could be why Kaido has amassed a crew of Zoan Devil Fruit users. He wanted to create an army that shares his ability, even if it's in an artificial sense. Zoan Devil Fruit users are able to shapeshift through their use of their ability, and in this way, feels more related to Kaido's nature. We have been eagerly waiting for Kaido's hybrid form, but what if the form we are actually being set up for is Kaido's Oni form? Kaido being an Oni doesn't necessarily contradict the possibility of him being a dragon either. Oni in Japanese folklore are a type of yokai, a class of supernatural monsters or spirits. And it just so happens, there exists a creature commonly referred to as the yokai dragon, whose appearance seems to be what Kaido, and by extension Momo's, dragon forms resemble. The yokai dragons are serpentine dragons, oriental looking in nature with long bodies, short legs, and without wings. Furthermore, yokai dragons are known to be able to disguise themselves as humans. Perhaps Kaido is not a devil fruit user at all, and rather part of the Oni/yokai dragon race. I mean, we know that Oda draws inspiration from folklore and legends, and this one seems to hit the nail right on the head. But this does raise some further questions, such as why have we not come across this race before, and whether Kaido is the only remaining member of this race. But I guess we may just have to wait to find out. Which leads us to the discussion of the second speculation raised by the flame cloud ability of dragons, which Kaido has exemplified. So, in chapter 997, Oda shocked us with the new reveal of Kaido using his flame clouds to lift up an entire island. Not only did this raise questions about the nature of Kaido's identity, it also causes us to wonder, if Kaido has this ability, has he used this before? And in fact, there are so many possibilities raised by this. But the first thing that I thought of when this ability was revealed was God Valley. God Valley is the name of an island where Goldie, Roger, and Garp allied to take down an infamous pirate, Rox D. Zebek. Following this battle, God Valley is said to have vanished and cannot be found on any map. Now, we also found out that Kaido was a part of the Rox pirates as an apprentice. Is it possible that he used his flame clouds to make God Valley disappear? Is it possible that Onigashima is even God Valley itself? It seems that in One Piece, pirates can be split up into two different camps if we're speaking generally. One Piece, despite being a shonen battle manga, has a lot more elements to it than just combat. Rather than just physical battles, Oda focuses on the battle of ideas. And following that, we have two types of pirates. The first being those who subscribe to the ideal of Goldie Roger, for whom the title of Pirate King symbolizes freedom. Pirates like Luffy and Shanks fall within this camp. The other being Roger's foe, Rocksteady Xebec, whose ambitions and goals center around conquering the world, and Blackbeard, presented as the polar opposite of Luffy, falls within this camp. But it seems like Kaido does too. Kaido was an apprentice in the Xebec pirates, and his recent announcements that he, along with Big Mom, plan on taking on the world government by acquiring the ancient weapons is a threatening message that suggests he follows his old captain's ideology. Perhaps after the defeat of his captain, he took care of the island on which the great battle took place, and there are a number of potential actions he could have taken. First of all is Onigashima, God Valley. Onigashima as an island separate from Wano springs first to mind. We saw in the latest chapter that the Torii Gate did not move along with Onigashima, raising the speculation that Onigashima is not originally from that area, further adding weight to the possibility of Kaido having transported God Valley elsewhere. Perhaps Kaido wanted to live out the ambitions of his captain and set up base. The two islands do seem to be interrelated in some way. I mean, their names play around with the idea of heaven and hell. If God Valley is where Xebec met his downfall, where the forces of good or light as Roger is portrayed won out, Kaido may have renamed it Onigashima, the Den of Demons, to mark the ensuing triumph of the dark forces to which he and his former captain belong. This could also explain Marco's seeming prior knowledge of the island. He questions, so they call that separate little island Onigashima now, in reference to the new name that Onigashima is known by. Considering that Marco was a part of Whitebeard's crew, he may have heard stories about the God Valley incident and what happened afterwards. Whitebeard, after all, was a former crewmate of Kaido's, and thus it is likely he would have been aware of Kaido's dragon ability. But this does raise the discrepancy between the time of the God Valley incident and when Kaido settled at Wano. The God Valley incident occurred 38 years ago, whereas Kaido took over Wano only 25 years ago. So considering an apprentice Marco on Whitebeard's crew arrived at Wano before Kaido did, it seems somewhat unlikely that Onigashima is actually God Valley. But to counter that, Kaido could have moved God Valley before he actually settled there. He may have planned out his eventual control of Wano from years before he actually took action. I mean, despite his raw brute strength, it certainly seems like Kaido is thoughtful when it comes to his ambitions. The over 20-year-long plan at Wano and his deception of Orochi are evidence to this. In that light, perhaps immediately following Xebec's defeat, Kaido moved God Valley and began plotting his own rise to the top. Wano would then be the perfect place to move the island, considering that Wano has been a closed nation for centuries. Perhaps God Valley could never be located on a map because after its transportation to Wano, no word about its relocation got out. And speaking of good hiding places, this brings us to the next possibility. Kaido hid God Valley in the sky. When we were introduced to God Valley, Oda draws the island and its name partly shrouded in clouds. Now, time to put on your tinfoil hats because you know I'ma get wild and crazy. So I may be reaching, but what if Oda drew the island this way to hint as to the island's future? That being, Kaido made the island float up into the sky. When we are first introduced to Kaido, he is shown jumping off a sky island, Balloon Terminal. This unique introduction may not have been just to show us his durability and his desire to die, but also his connection to the Sky Islands. In fact, there may be more to God Valley than just Kaido or even Xebec. Perhaps God Valley was originally from the Sky Islands that fell to Earth before or around the Void Century. I mean, if there is a way for an Earthbound island to shoot up to become a Sky Island, perhaps the reverse is also possible and a Sky Island can land on Earth. I mean, if dragons can lift up an island, they should also be able to float it down to Earth, right? Similar to what Kaido is trying to do with Onigashima. And going back to the play on heaven and hell, the name God Valley could also be linked to the celestial dragons. We know that the God Valley incident involved a celestial dragon and their slaves, so it's not out of the question that this island is the original home of the Tenryubito, or at least that they have some sort of connection to it. We know that ancient giants existed, and the only one we know by name, Oz, is known as the continent puller, gaining this epithet because he amassed countries and islands under his control. But have you ever wondered about how sky islands exist and how they float in the sky? I mean, we know of Balloon Terminal, which is held up by an abundance of lost helium balloons that floated up into the sky, but what about all the others? What if Kaido's ancestors and the dragon race achieved a similar feat to Oz and created the Sky Islands? This being where the celestial dragons originated. The connection between the two races of ancient giants and dragons seem even more likely when we consider the similar horns shared by the ancient giant race and the ones on Kaido. And if Kaido is part of the dragon race, perhaps his ancestors share some history with the Tenryubito too, which could answer some of the questions I posed earlier as to why we don't know about this mystical yokai dragon race if they disappeared around the time of the Void Century. When we consider how much of the remaining mystery and lore of One Piece seems to be connected to Wano, it's not out of the question that Kaido himself may be smack bang in the middle of it. One Piece is on its way to finishing relatively soon, so perhaps a lot more is to be revealed in this arc than we expected. But that's enough of the wild speculating from me. Let me know of what ideas this new revelation raised for you, as well as what you think of the ones discussed in today's video by leaving a comment below. Please also like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. This is JoyGirl, and I'll see you again soon.